Then the Sheikh of Al-Azhar, Sheikh Mahmoud Shaltut, gave a fatwa, verdict, in the middle of the 20th century that the Jafari school of thought, Shia Islam, is one of the recognized Islamic sects. And any Muslim, as he can be, according to him, Hanafi or Shafi'i or Hanbali or Maliki, he can be also Shia Muslim. Because in fact, Al-Azhar scholars were facing severe problems.
I wanted to discuss this dua to the youths, in particular years. That I was once speaking in another center in London. Different subject. I was not even speaking on Ilahi al-Bala. And well, when I saw an alim and he was dressed in his kabah and a black turban, so I knew he was a Sayyid. When he raised his hand, of course I gave him priority. But you see, we've got to be careful these times because some of these people come in the wrong garb. He called himself a Shia Sayyid and he questions me and says, what do you say about that dua which starts Ilahi Adham al-Bala? I will not detain you on that history. In less than a minute I'll finish this part of the story to come to the main point. He says, what do you say about that dua Ilahi Adham al-Bala? And I mentioned to him the authorities that I mentioned to you. I said, well, I regard that as authentic. The first book that comes to our mind is Mafatih al-Jinan. That Shaykh Abbas Qummi, Mafatih al-Jinan, has reported this from the 12th Imam alayhi salam. Fortunately, I remembered the account of Allama Tabrasi alayhi rahmah. Put that to him. He says, oh, this is all Shia fabrication. All this is not authentic because reciting this dua is shirk. And there is guna in it. I said, look, I cannot accept that at all. It's taught by an Imam alayhi salam, an Imam who was sent by Allah to stop us from shirk. If there is anybody who will teach us to keep away from shirk, it will be him. He would not be doing the contrary. But I said, this is not my subject, it's not a matter for discussion now, and I will not permit you to take time of the audience on that subject and cut him short. But I realize that there are agencies within us who are promulgating this, and I thought we better make this clear. You can see from the first paragraph of this dua, it is a dua to Allah.
Rumi, when he talks about Imam Ali alayhi salam, says, in bravery you are the lion of your Lord, but in generosity who knows who you are. They have that balance. When you need to be brave, they're brave. When they need to be generous, they are generous. And they highlighted to us as well a very revolutionary ideology that remains with the Shia school until today. That whenever you see injustice or tyranny, speak out against it. You mentioned, for example, in Iraq, how many of the followers of Ahlul Bayt used Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam as the inspiration behind standing against the tyranny that they saw. And there will be future movements as well of great followers of Ahlul Bayt who used Imam al-Hussain to stand against tyranny in every part of the world, as in Nelson Mandela himself was affected by the followers of Ahlul Bayt when they stood up against oppression in the 70s, for example. So what we find is that that message is a message which allows us to understand that there are times where you have to be passive, where you have to try and be in dialogue, but there are other times when you see injustice, you can't just sit down and say, well, let them continue to be unjust. You use the spirit of Imam al-Hussain. And that's why the hadith of Imam, when he says in the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussain, there is a heat in the heart of the believer that will never subside. There's a heat in the heart of the believer that will never subside. And that's where when you see revolutions of the Shia especially, in the last 30 years or so, you always find that that heat of Imam al-Hussain is what helps the revolution.
And as you mentioned, it also plays a role as a form of calling people to the path of Ahlul Bayt. You mentioned the revolution in 1979 in Iran influenced South Africans. Many South Africans, and Nigeria, we said today, has been influenced by those events. And so by fighting oppression, we're actually spreading the message of the Ahlul Bayt and the ideology, inshallah. I believe we do have one final caller before we wrap up the show. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. I have a question.
Sure.
Why do we say Hussain it was like no other martyr? Because there are other martyrs in history, like Hazrat Hamza, the Prophet's uncle.
Sure. So why is Imam Hussain the master of martyrs? Sure. Thank you.
Well, without a doubt, Hazrat Hamza, the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, was known as the master of martyrs up until the Battle of Karbala. And the idea that he was the one who was seen as being the valiant warrior of the message of Islam in its early days. The religion was able to continue to remain alive even though he was martyred. The religion would not have remained alive had it not been for Imam al-Husayn's martyrdom. You see, when Hamza got killed, you had, a continuation of the religion that would have continued anyway, without a doubt, as in like his sacrifice was a great sacrifice. But the Prophet's message would have still been able to continue in the fact that the Muslims hadn't reached a state of dissension. It was quite a united religion at the time. Whereas with Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, were it not for his martyrdom, then there would be no one representing the religion of Islam in the way it should be represented. There was a famous writer by the name of Swami Shakancharya who came forward and said that were it not for the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussain, then Islam would have had no face at all again. In other words, what we mean is when Imam al-Hussain lost his life on the 10th of Muharram, he actually gave life to the religion. You see how that works? You lost your life, but you gave life to the religion. And because he gave life to a religion, the fact that he woke up people. Hamza at his time, there was no dissension. Everyone was a small pocket of people who were all united. In Imam al-Husayn's time, he needed the Muslims to wake up to see how other Muslims were behaving. That's why he was revered as the master of martyrs. Further than that, his grandfather sallallahu alayhi wa is the one who termed him with that title on numerous traditions when he would talk about his martyrdom at Karbala.
Thank you very much, Said. I have one last question, inshallah. Regarding children, I believe previously in the show there was a very interesting caller who said that her child was very curious about certain of the mourning practices when people mourn and remember Imam Hussain alayhi salam. In your opinion, obviously you're the most prominent speaker within the West and the Islamic world, speaking, lecturing in English. You come across a lot of people, you also teach to young children. What, in your opinion, is the best way to explain the story of Muharram, of Karbala, to children? Firstly, that they understand what's going on, and they actually understand why their parents are sitting in the Hussaini crying. And also, in a way to do it which isn't very... Because obviously to speak about battles can be very bloody or gory for young children. And so maybe what's the best way to do it in the most sensitive way for children?
Well, I think when it comes to children, my first opinion when it comes to a lot of the younger children is they should have majalis which are coordinated, separate from the main lecture. As in, if one of my main lectures, let's say this Muharram, is the analysis, for example, of the population of Kufa and their different ideologies, then that 6-year-old sitting down is going to be thinking, when are we going home? Whereas if you can coordinate a majlis on the side for the children, the first box is ticked. The second box that then has to be ticked is that you relate the figures who are very much related to their age. Aoun, Muhammed, Qasim, Ali Asghar, Radi', this is all in and around their age. They can relate to them a lot more. Teach them about what they went through, but you bring in the snippets. They were nice to their mother, they helped their father, they were crying and hugging their uncle. Lines like that are lines of emotion for children at that age. They can relate to them a lot more. They prayed on the day, they woke up for Fajr. You try and make them understand something which they're slowly beginning to understand at home. But I don't think that begins on the main lecture hall. That you have to organize something on the side. You give them activities. How many companions did Imam al-Hussain have who were kids? Question and answer session, quizzes. That type of movement, I think, will inspire many a young child. But I do have to stress that do not underestimate the intellect of our children as well. I'll never forget a caption which was taken of one of my lectures in Toronto a couple of years ago, where I'm on the mimbar. And underneath me, if you look at the caption, you'll see the children are staring while I'm talking. I'm pretty certain that the content of that lecture, I would have thought that the younger children would no way be able to understand. But no, some we have who are very bright. If they tell you, Mommy and Daddy, I really want to go and listen to that speaker, then why not give them a chance the odd couple of nights? See If they're able to understand, they're able. If they're not, then they themselves will make it clear, I was bored, I prefer to stay here, for example. So I do believe their own environment, their own logic, their own type of wording, and it will help.
Thank you very much, Said. Inshallah, I hope that we've managed to answer these very many questions. We couldn't focus on the day of the 10th of Muharram itself because it's such a vast topic that we could dedicate an entire show to it itself. Said, again, I'd like to thank you very much for being with us, joining us, giving us your time. I believe, obviously, for Muharram, you are not going to be in London. You're going to be reciting where?
In Australia. In
Australia, inshallah.
Sydney.
So if any brothers are watching in Sydney, make sure you make your way there. And then after that, I believe you will be away for a few weeks. So inshallah, in the new year, we'd love to have you back on the 20th hour, and we can carry on all of these discussions, which I believe have been a real success, and have really managed to teach myself, teach the viewers, and all of us a reminder about the Ahlul Bayt. So again, Sayyid, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank you again, the viewers, for joining us here on Ahlul Bayt TV on the 20th hour. As I mentioned just now, we are not going to be here for the next couple of weeks. So inshallah in the new year, we'd be honoured if we could have the Sayyid back for a few more episodes of the 20th hour. Again, it's been an honour and it's been excellent. So inshallah we will see you in a few weeks. And again, I pray that you remember all of us in your du'as during the 10 nights of Muharram and beyond. And we also tried to, after the day of Ashura, keep that passion going so that as the year comes, the next 12 months come, we go to the masjid and we remember every other imam, the wiladats and the shahadats of all the imams as well. And inshallah our mosques will be as busy in those nights as they are on the 10th of Muharram. So from myself, Isa Ali, and as well from our dear and beloved Sayyid Ammar Nakshwani, we'd like to bid you a good night and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
In 1992, the end of 1992, it was Brother Azad who approached me at my brother's place once. He was visiting my brother Hussain, the late marhum Hussain Sayyid, and I happened to be in the area, and he's given me a book to read. Then I was guided, and I didn't pay much interest because I just thought it was just one of those books to read. And yes, in 1992 was the first time that I encountered, I got introduction to the Shia Islam. Me a book to read, then I was guided. And I didn't pay much interest because I just thought it was just one of those books to read. And yes. Allahumma salli alayhi, Allahumma salli alayhi, Allahumma salli alayhi, Allahumma salli alayhi, Allah. I started reading the book the very same night that he's given it to me, and in fact I completed the book the very same night. And when I started to read things in that book, it went exactly against the grain of my thought, is that this is not what I've learned in my madrasa days. And I believed at that point in time is that I knew quite a bit about Islam, and only after reading the book did I realize how little I knew about Islam. And then I started to investigate, and there was a particular hadith of Fadak that I read, and that started my investigation. And then I wanted to see how true it was that Bibi Fatima Salamun Alayha has faced all these atrocities in life. And at that point in time, when I authenticated this hadith, especially from the school of thought that I've come from, and I found that to be true, then I said, Shukr to my Allah that you have guided me onto the right.
We delved deeper and we started scratching to establish what is it behind this political movement, only to discover that there was an ideological force which was in fact the school of Ahlul Bayt. I
didn't know what school of thought I followed. All I knew is that we were among colleagues who said that we are Ashiq Rasul, and that's all I knew, that we should stand for Salam, we should read our Salah, and that to me was my Islam. And later, after studying the school of Ahlul Bayt, did I realize that I followed the Berelvi school of thought.
The foundation, the inspiration for this revolution came from the revolution of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. When you embraced the school of Ahl al-Bayt, did you have much difficulty in practicing the faith? Did you have problems from the family or the wider community?